COVID-19 has led to high levels of unemployment, loss of income and rising food costs around the world at a time when people have less money in their pockets. But even before the pandemic unfolded, more than 820 million people were already deemed to be chronically lacking steady access to affordable, nutritious food. But the United Nations has warned that that number could rise to almost 1 billion by the end of 2020. Many of these vulnerable people are themselves part of the food supply chain as small producers, farm labourers, rural workers, and of course, their dependents. As their produce simply doesn't sell and goes to waste, the impact on their livelihoods is even more detrimental. To discuss this issue and some efforts that are being made to overcome food security and food waste, not only throughout the pandemic, but beyond that as a sustainable development goal, we're joined today by Joseph Lim, Senior Partnerships and Innovation Officer at the World Federation of United Nations in Seoul, who joins us on the phone today. And we also have Lin Huang, who's been a big player in the global food business and 3 years ago co-founded Tamago, a mobile platform that resolves this mismatch of people lacking access to good food and good food going to waste. Welcome to both of you, and well, let's go straight into the discussion. Let's start with you, Joe. Now, what does it really mean to have food security? This is a term that we're hearing quite a lot. What are the factors that make it really sustainable?
Hello, and thank you for having me on this show. As you mentioned, there's about 800 million people going hungry today, and the numbers depends on how you count it. Could be up to about 3 billion people that can't hold up a nutritious diet. And this is an issue that's affecting about 40% of the world population. And food security in particular is very interesting because unlike some of the other issues highlighted in the UN Sustainable Development Goals, it's one issue that has very clear consequences and something that many of us can also see direct reasons why it's happening. And I think it's an issue that has been talked about quite often. It's directly tied with critical issues like poverty and food systems. We're also seeing that it's an issue that we need to clearly discuss because it has health consequences and it leads to social inequality. One quite interesting fact is that food insecurity is most numerous in Asia, and that's a number that's more than Africa. And we, Lynn and I, were actually working in Asia to improve food security here.
Mm-hmm. And Joe, what really has been the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on access to food? I mean, Oxfam has warned of a hunger pandemic. Which countries or social groups have been hit hardest by the COVID-19 pandemic?
The pandemic has unfortunately hit the less fortunate harder than it has anyone else. And so that means that those who were already food insecure many of them have been tipped over the line as well. They're expecting about 100 million more people going into hunger by the end of this year.
And Lynn, well, you've worked in the food industry for a very long time across the world, and well, as the pandemic disrupts trade and production and really tears down income levels for households everywhere, how have the world's food producers and consumers, both ends, been affected, particularly in the most economically vulnerable societies?
Yeah. Food producers, manufacturers, farmers, they had big problems because especially at the beginning, with COVID, a lot of the restaurants were ordering less, so they were closing. So there was a glut and a surplus of harvested farms. Producers couldn't sell what they produced, so a lot of it was going to waste. But fortunately, there were some organizations and people that found innovative ways to save some of this food and get it to where it needs to. But unfortunately, a lot of it did go to waste. And at the households too, as Joe said, a lot of people facing food insecurity. It's gotten worse, but also people that were borderline losing jobs, they were facing food insecurity for the first time. And again, there were some organizations that stepped up around the world, and it's gotten better, but there's still a lot of food that's going to waste.
Exactly, and Joe, well, even before this pandemic, global hunger is continuing to rise, and this is this isn't just confined to rural communities, but it also includes people in developed economies as well. And what are some critical challenges that need to be overcome to really procure food security around the world?
We could distinguish food security into two major points. One is food availability, and this is making food available on a consistent basis. And the other would be food access. It would mean having sufficient means to obtain a nutritious diet.
So it's not really just a matter of will I have dinner or what's for dinner, but it's will I have dinner every day and will it be good for me in the long run and my family as well. So it really affects, not just your everyday dietary needs, but for the long run, and especially during this pandemic, especially when we need to build immunity. It's just such a shame to see food insecurity growing. And well, Lynn, now, despite the concerns surrounding food security and the availability to affordable and nutritious foods, we still see a lot of food going to waste by households, restaurants, supermarkets, and really it is literally a terrible waste. And you've actually come up with a solution for that. You've said you're saving ugly food. We're very intrigued about this. Tell us more.
Yeah, so we created a mobile app launched last year in Indonesia, this year in Indonesia. What we do is we partner with restaurants, bakeries, and grocery stores, as well as farms and manufacturers. And anytime they have any unsold, untouched food, this is perfectly good food that usually goes to waste. Think of bakery. If you've been to a bakery near closing time, they have perfectly good bread on the shelves. A lot of times it ends up going to waste in the garbage bin because they couldn't sell it. So what we do is we partner with them, and instead of them throwing it away, they can sell it on our app for about half price, and people can purchase it at a huge discount and prevent it from going to waste. We work with farms to help them sell their ugly fruit and vegetables, as well as any surplus harvest that they have, and we'll sell them directly to our users as well as our restaurant partners on the B2B side. And we're also soon to be releasing a new feature where people at home and at households can share any untouched food. If they've made too much or if they've bought too many bananas and they can't eat it all, they can share with their neighbors efficiently and quickly. This is it's going to be totally free for everyone and more of a user acquisition tool and help everyone to reduce waste at homes.
And Lynn, you were actually working in the global food industry as a food exporter and a trade consultant, and then, of course, you brought a very big American restaurant business here to South Korea. What made you stop all this, stop selling food, but start, as you said, rescuing it?
I always hated waste growing up, especially food waste, and working at the different levels of the food industry, I directly experienced, and I was unwillingly a part of throwing away lots of perfectly good food. I'm not talking about a couple kilograms here and there, but sometimes there were tons of it when I had a seafood factory with my father and we're producing seafood. And there's just times that you can't sell it. There's too much of it. The prices aren't good, and you can't donate it because it's just too much quantity and no one's going to take except that amount of donations. So we had to end up throwing it away and paying it to throw it away. And I've always wanted to do something about it, but I didn't have a way or a time to reduce the waste. And in Korea, I met my co-founder 3 years ago, and we found that there were economically viable and sustainable ways to reduce waste, which was through our app, a similar idea like we heard about, and that's why we got into it. And it's just it makes perfect sense for me to do it with my background and all the experience I've had and everything I've seen with food waste. And it was just kind of like the perfect storm for us.
Right, and it's obviously having a very positive environmental impact as well. And your app, it's being actively used in Indonesia, where you are right now, where the country actually has a rather serious level of hunger and challenges to food security. How have you been making impact with your app with communities there? And do you have any plans to expand to other countries?
Yeah, we launched just a few months ago, about 4 or 5 months ago. And so what we do is people can purchase perfectly good food and save significant amounts of money. It'll help them reduce their costs. But in addition to that, we've done donation projects where we help some food businesses and food manufacturers donate their untouched food to people in need. This is something that we want to do all the time, but it's difficult to do all the time because we don't have the manpower as well, and it takes a lot of time and effort and money. But we do have a way in the near future to make this more efficient and effective through tech. And we do have a way to make it economically sustainable and viable so that we can do this on a full-time basis and even help the food producers and the donors maybe earn a little money while they're donating the food for free to people in need. So we're excited to get that kicked off in the next few months.
It does sound very exciting. And Joe, well, hearing about these kind of innovations, it's all very encouraging. And in the future, as we move into the post-pandemic world, are there any technologies or innovations that we can really look forward to in the new normal to strengthen food security?
You know, food security is part of a very wide global system that, has its supplies and demands. And I think on the supply side, many, governments and businesses are doing their best in creating innovations just like Lynn is doing here. I think in the future, we should be expecting and also we should be working on innovations that are demand-driven, so to say, consumer-led. And so we have been seeing many consumers take a different appetite in the type of food that they're eating so that it could also make the food system much more efficient in being able to grow more and also reap more. So I would be expecting to see many consumer-led activism as well as collaborative ways in making these smarter decisions for customers, and I would really look out for them and try to participate in them.
Right, so it's not just a matter of is it affordable or accessible, not just that, of course, those are very critical issues, but also the means of how it's produced and also moved and distributed. So it's a really system-wide process that we have to think about. And Joe, you've been working with entrepreneurs like Lynn to bring very sustainable social solutions to life, really, around the world as we move towards the Sustainable Development Goals. Tell us more about these efforts, and are there any local efforts going on here in South Korea?
Right. We've been working with entrepreneurs since 2017 to solve some of the major global issues outlined by the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Lynn is one of the forward-thinking entrepreneurs we work with that solve food security issues. We've started this program in Seoul with the UN, and now we've branched out to the wider Asia Pacific, Africa, and now we have a global program launching next year as well. And we're very excited to onboard new entrepreneurs who could utilize the backing of the United Nations to solve some of the major issues in various areas. But in terms of the work with Lynn, we actually are doing a drive in Korea that people could participate in through Happy Bean, a neighbor platform in Korea, where we take food that is going to be thrown away by bigger conglomerates, and we donate it to the elderly as well as other institutions that are taking care of the weaker among us. So if any of you are interested, please look that up. I think if you look up Tamogo on Neighbor Happy Bean, then you'll find it right away.
And Lynn, just before we go, I just wanted to hear if you had an interesting story of an instance where you had to really rescue food quite unexpectedly or in a large volume.
Well, actually, there was a company that contacted us in Korea when there was a manufacturer of some kind of a pork rind chips in Korea, and they had, I think, over 10,000 bags of chips that they were going to throw away. It was 10,000 chips, and they still had probably 4 months of shelf life left, so it was perfectly good. Even after shelf life is good, but they couldn't sell it to the retail stores because there was 4 months left, and they require a lot more than that. So they heard about us, they contacted us, and I think we had only a couple days to get rid of it, or else they had to get it out of their warehouse and throw it away. So we found a place to get it donated to. So we were able to donate all 10,000 plus bags to a homeless shelter, and the feedback we got was that everyone enjoyed it like crazy because it was really tasty. So we were fortunate enough to prevent that from going to waste.
Right, so again, this is a reminder that food insecurity is not just a problem that's confined to, as we would be rather prejudiced to think, in the developing world, but also in economically advanced countries as well, people lacking critical access to food. And you're really providing very fine food, good quality food that's perfectly perfect for consumption, but going to a lot of waste. But, well, thank you both so much for your time today. This is where we have to end the discussion. But that was Joseph Lim, Senior Partnerships and Innovation Officer at the World Federation of United Nations in Seoul, and Lin Huang, CEO and co-founder of Tamago, joining us from Indonesia. Thank you so much for your insights.
Thank you for having us.
Glad to be here.
And to our viewers, as always, thank you for watching.